Every year, on the third Sunday of November, for 28 years, Rose Ampansa had taken a new photograph with her son David. The same spot in every photograph. The front porch steps of the house on Peachtree Avenue in Savannah, Georgia, where Rose had lived since David was born, where she had raised him alone after his father's early death, where the azaleas she had planted the year David started school had grown, over 28 years, into a hedge that was now taller than either of them. The photographs lined the hallway of that house. 28 years of November Sundays, Rose and David getting older together, the azaleas getting taller behind them, the light of Georgia November slanting the same way every year. She had not been inside the Peachtree Avenue house in 14 months. Not because it was her house, it was not. David had bought it from her in 2018 when she had decided to downsize, and the arrangement had been warm and mutual. And she had moved to a condo 4 streets away and had kept the photograph tradition because they were neighbors and because some things do not require proximity to continue. She had not been inside because David's wife, a woman named Serena, had told her in January 2022, with the careful language of someone who has rehearsed their boundaries and arrived prepared, that Rose's visits were happening more frequently than Serena was comfortable with, and that going forward, Rose should call before coming, and that holiday visits would need to be coordinated in advance. Rose had agreed. She had called before coming. She had coordinated in advance. In March 2022, she had stopped by for a previously arranged visit and noticed in the hallway that the photographs were gone. Not reorganized, not relocated. The hallway was bare. 28 years of November Sundays. The hedge, the light, herself and David at every age, were gone. She had asked David about it later. He had said, Serena redecorated. She prefers clean walls. He had said it the way he said things about Serena's preferences, not as an apology, not as an excuse, but as information that was settled and did not require discussion. Rose had not discussed it. She had gone home. She had stood in her own condo and looked at her own walls, where her copies of the same photographs still hung. 28 frames, 28 November Sundays, herself and David in the light of every year she had raised him. And she had stood there for a long time. She had called David every Sunday since. He returned the calls, usually. The visits had become quarterly. At Christmas, he and Serena had come for dinner. At Easter, he had come alone, briefly, because Serena had a prior engagement. The photograph tradition had not been mentioned. Rose had not asked about it. She had not asked about a lot of things. She had been not asking for 14 months when she walked onto the Family Feud stage. David had been born in 1987, 3 years after Rose had arrived in Savannah from Kumasi with $40, a sponsor family's address, and the specific, unshakable determination of a woman who had decided that the distance she had traveled was going to mean something. She had worked 3 jobs in the first 2 years. She had cleaned offices in the mornings, worked a hospital cafeteria in the afternoons, and babysat in the evenings. She had saved enough to take a nursing assistant course in 1986. She had been a licensed practical nurse by 1989. She had bought the Peachtree Avenue house in 1991, the year David turned 4, with a down payment she had saved in 5 years from nothing. David had grown up in that house. He had done his homework at the kitchen table. He had gone to his high school prom from that porch. He had left from that porch for college and come back to it for every Thanksgiving for 4 years. He had brought Serena to that house for the first time in 2017. Rose had made jollof rice. Serena had said it was wonderful. Rose had believed her. She had believed a lot of things for a long time. She had believed, specifically, that 28 years of November photographs represented something about David's relationship to his history. something that would remain true regardless of who else moved into the frame. She had believed that the hallway was a record of something real that neither of them would choose to erase. Nobody in that studio knew that the hallway was bare. Rose had applied to Family Feud with her church group, 5 women who had known her for 20 years, who had sat with her in this and in everything, who had seen the photographs on her walls and understood exactly what it meant that the ones in David's hallway were gone. They had submitted the application together and arrived at the studio together. And Rose had put on the yellow dress she had worn to David's graduation because it was the dress she wore when she wanted to feel like herself. And she had walked onto that stage and sat in the contestant's chair and thought, I am here. I am visible. I exist in 28 photographs that I still have. Steve Harvey introduced the team and asked Rose what she did. Retired nurse, 31 years, same hospital. He said 31 years was a life's work and he meant it. He asked what the most important thing she had learned from nursing. She said that people need to be seen to heal. You cannot recover in invisibility. Steve said, Are you invisible somewhere? She looked at him. And Rose Amponsa told Steve Harvey about the hallway and the 28 photographs and the azalea hedge and the clean walls and 14 months of coordinated visits and Sunday calls that were returned usually. She described the house on Peachtree Avenue in the way of someone who built something over 28 years and knows every detail of it precisely. She said, My son's wife prefers clean walls. She said, I have my copies. I still have all 28. She did not say it bitterly. She said it as a fact. She said it as a woman who has decided that she's going to be the record, since the hallway no longer is. The studio fell completely silent. Steve Harvey had stepped back from the podium. He was looking at Rose with the specific expression that appears when a story lands somewhere it was always going to land. You said you still have all 28, he said. Yes. On your walls? Yes. She can redecorate. She cannot undecorate you. 300 people exhaled. Let me tell you something, Steve said. He walked forward slowly. My parents sacrificed for me, and there were years when I did not honor that sacrifice the way it deserved to be honored. I know what it costs a parent to build something for a child and then watch the child not see the full weight of what was built. I was sleeping in my car for 3 years. I was not the son my parents needed me to be. And when I came through the other side, when I finally understood what my mother had carried to raise me, I made a promise. I would never let a parent in front of me feel invisible if I could help it. He looked at Rose. You are not invisible. You have 28 photographs. You have this room. And I want David to see this. Stop everything, Steve said. He turned off stage. We are stopping the game. This has never happened in the 45-year history of this show. He walked Rose to the front of the stage and sat beside her on the steps and said, Tell me about the azaleas. She told him. She had planted them in 1991 when David started school. She had chosen them because her grandmother had grown them in Kumasi. She had tended them for 27 years. They were taller than her now. She said, They are still there, in the yard. She cannot remove the azaleas. Steve was quiet for a moment. Then he said, She cannot remove the azaleas. The audience made a sound. He held up his hand. He pulled out his phone and called a family communication specialist live. Speaker on, the whole room hearing. He explained the situation in 4 sentences. The specialist said, This is a common dynamic in new marriages. The partner redecorating erases the history. The mother feels erased. The son doesn't name what's happening because naming it requires choosing. She said, This is workable. I want to meet this family. Steve arranged 3 sessions. Rose alone, David alone, then together, and covered all costs. He turned to the competing family, the Mensa family from Augusta, whose matriarch, Aqua, was already on her feet. She crossed the stage and stood in front of Rose and said, 31 years of nursing, 3 jobs when David was 4, 28 November Sundays. You are not a clean wall. You are the foundation of that house. Both families received the full $25,000 prize. Steve Harvey looked at Rose, at the camera, at the 28 photographs he had never seen and knew completely, and said 5 words. She cannot remove the azaleas. When the episode aired 6 weeks later, those 5 words became the most quoted phrase of the entire season. It reached 290 million views in 11 days. The hashtag #Shachin, she cannot remove the azaleas, was used by mothers, daughters-in-law, sons caught between the two, marriage therapists, and family historians across 31 countries. The metaphor transcended the specific story and became a shorthand for what cannot be erased, regardless of what is put over it. 3 months after the taping, David called Rose. He had watched the episode twice. He said, "Mom, I didn't know it felt that way." She said, "I know you didn't know. Knowing and not knowing are both choices." He was quiet. He said, "Can I come on Sunday?" She said, "Yes." He brought a framed copy of one of the November photographs. He had it reprinted from the digital file. He had hung it in his office at work. He said, "It's not the hallway." Rose said, "No, but it's a wall." 6 months after the taping, Rose and David reinstated the November Sunday photographs. They did not hang them back in his hallway. They created a shared digital album, one that Serena helped organize, after the 3 sessions with the family specialist, after a conversation between Serena and Rose that the family has described only as honest. Rose says Serena is more complicated than the clean walls suggested. She says that feels right. A year after the taping, the Azalea Foundation, established through Steve Harvey's foundation, provides intergenerational family communication support and elder relationship resources for parents navigating post-marriage family dynamics. In its first year, more than 600 families were served. The foundation symbol is an azalea. Its motto, "You cannot remove the azaleas." Today, Rose Amponsa has 30 November photographs on her wall. She and David took the 29th one last November. Same spot, his house, the azalea hedge behind them, taller than ever. She is in every photograph. She is visible in all 30. If this incredible story of a mother's quiet dignity and the love that grew too deep to erase moved your heart, subscribe and hit the like button. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that some things cannot be redecorated away. Have you ever felt erased by someone who didn't know what they were erasing? Share your story in the comments, because as Rose proved, the azaleas are still there. And so is she.